Japan hostage situation and the fight against ISIL. I'm joined from Boston by Max Abrahms. He's a counterterrorism strategy analyst and a political science professor at Northeastern University. Max, welcome back to the broadcast.
Thank you.
Is ISIL essentially inviting other nations, such as Japan, to join in the international fight against them?
Well, there's a real irony about terrorism because, on the one hand, the perpetrators typically demand of governments to make some sort of a political concession. And yet, in the face of terrorism, target countries tend to do the exact opposite. They tend to go on the offensive. And we've already seen this a little bit after there was a lone wolf attack in Canada. The Canadian public became much more enthusiastic about taking on Islamic State. We've seen a similar effect in public opinion polling within France, as well as in Australia too, after the Sydney siege attack there. And I think that Japan is undergoing the same sort of thing, where now that at least one of its citizens has been killed, it's much more likely to go on the offensive.
I see. Well, tell us, why was Japan willing to negotiate in that hostage situation back in 1999? They paid for the release of actually 4 mining experts. It was $3 million. This time ISIL was wanting $200 million, a huge difference. But still, the fact remains they were willing to negotiate.
You know, almost all governments say that as a general rule, they do not negotiate with terrorists. But the reality is that in some cases, almost all governments have. That's including under the Obama administration, which traded Bergdahl we traded the Gitmo 5 detainees from Gitmo. And so sometimes these kind of negotiations do happen. In this case, though, it's much less likely that Japan would deal with the terrorists for a number of reasons. As you alluded in the beginning, the nature of the demand is much, much bigger. $200 million is exorbitant. It's orders of magnitude more money than most governments pay to get a hostage back. Furthermore, there's a lot of international attention on this episode. And Japan has been asked explicitly by leaders all over the world not to give in and negotiate with the terrorists. And then finally, the perpetrators in this case are the Islamic State. And obviously, 1999 was pre-9/11, when terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and then Islamic State didn't exist. And so the idea of enriching and strengthening a terrorist group as lethal of Islamic State is beyond the pale.
I see. We have just not much time left, but tell me, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is now saying he's willing to, try and get the second one freed, Mr. Goto. They're calling on Jordan to mediate the situation here. What's the likelihood of this really happening?
Extraordinarily low. This is not just a run-of-the-mill terrorist, if you will. This al-Rishawi character, both her brother as well as her husband, were also terrorists in the group Al-Qaeda in Iraq. This woman was personally implicated, indeed confessed to being involved in what's widely seen as the most notorious terrorist attack in Al-Qaeda in Iraq's history. And so I think it's extraordinarily unlikely that this woman will be traded.